Hi everyone. Is the audio clear? So let's continue for today. So we have seen how to do basic MPLS, how the service provider does the basic MPLS. Just he enables a LDP on all the links in their networks, and then LDP forms and establishes neighborships. LDP generates the list of labels for the static or GP routes, and then LDP exchanges the list of labels creates the lib table. So the stores the locally generated label as well as labels received from the neighbors, all in the lib table. Then from the lib table, the forwarding table is created, that is called as LFIB, and based on the LFIB, now the packets will be labeled and sent forward, right? So this is all we discuss, and then we also discuss how to troubleshoot in case there is a problem in LDP neighborship. So that also I explained you all this thing. Now let us go further now. If you remember now, what this customer one was running. What was the routing protocol? The customer one was running RIP routing protocol, and then service provider in their internal IGP, it was what OSPFs, and how I exchange customer, our router one's route to router six, how the routes were exchanged. R1 sends the RIP routes to where? R3. Same way R6 send the RIP routes to where? R5. And then what we did? We redistributed this route where? Into OSPF, right? Same thing we did here also. And then from OSPF, what I did? Redistributed back. So like that. But just this is just one customer. Maybe I do like this. Suppose but just imagine this service provider. Let's say this service provider has 10,000 customers, or let's say this service provider has 1,000 customers. How many customers? 1,000. And then each customer, let's say, has 10 routes. So how many routes will be there? It will be like 10K, right? Can OSPF handle such a large number of routes? Maybe yes. Okay, let's say OSPF handles 10,000 routes. Tomorrow, the service provider becomes popular. They have 10,000 customers, and now possibly each customer has maybe 100 routes. Then what happens? How many routes will be there now to exchange? How many routes will be there? 10,000 into 100. Just imagine. So 7 digit. That means it is basically what? A million routes. Can million routes IGP handle? No. So do you think in a real environment, in a real service provider environment, service provider must be doing like this? Are they redistributing customers' route into their IGP? No. First of all, this is not the way it is done. Okay. So please understand what we did so far. That is just for understanding. Quickly, I just wanted to show how the packet labeling, how LDP was. For that reason, I just wanted some routes. That's the reason I did that customer R1 was running what RIP. If you guys remember, I configured RIP here. So this was customer was running RIP. So we also service provider also had to run RIP. It was RIP version 2 basically. Whenever we say RIP, basically means what RIP version 2. Now, okay. So in a real world, what happened basically? Do you redistribute customers routing in your IGP? No, because IGPs cannot say scale. So that's the reason what service provider must be using. Service provider must be using internally what? They will have what? BGP. They'll also have what? BGP running. And that is where which BGP will come? This is basically iBGP, and that's the reason we already know in BGP we are done. iBGP works over what? IGP. Because of IGP, can I make R3 and R5 iBGP neighbors? Yes, even though R3 and R5 are not directly connected, the PE routers they are not directly connected. Still, if I want, I can make them as what? Neighbors, right? So in a real environment, service provider, this MPLS service provider will be running iBGP in their cloud. Why service providers, what's the reason why service providers migrated to MPLS when MPLS technology came in? Why service providers, they like this technology so much and they started migrating to MPLS? One of the reason, if you see now, okay, previously in iBGP, okay, let's say I make R3, let's say I make R3. Let me just first remove this. So in iBGP, suppose I make this two guys neighbor. I run iBGP here. So if I run iBGP, they become iBGP. So whatever R3 is learning, all the customers route. Let's say maybe R3 is learning maybe 100,000 routes. So all these 100,000 routes from all these different customers, you redistribute into what? IGP. IBGP, sorry, not IGP, IBGP. And then the routes, R3 will forward the routes to where? R5. Because R3 and R5 now IBGP neighbor. How they can become IBGP neighbor? Because of this IGP. R3 knows the loopback of R5, R5 knows the loopback of R3. Because of this IGP, that's the reason we can form BGP neighborship between R3 and R5. And now same way from here, let's say another 100,000 routes, we redistribute into BGP, and then BGP carries this routes, almost 200,000 routes, or maybe, as I said, BGP is scalable. So there is no upper limit. Today, maybe you want 1 million routes to be supported by BGP. BGP will support 1 million routes. Tomorrow, 10 million routes you want, BGP will support 10 million routes. So no upper limit. Okay, but now suppose the traffic comes from the customer. So when the routes have been exchanged from where? Directly from R3 to R5. So which routers carry the routing routes of the customer? Only R3 and R5 knows about the customer routes, right? Like that. What about R2 and R4? R2 and R4, they don't have any customer route because they are just normal routers, just running OSPF, like that. So before MPLS, suppose this customer is sending traffic. Let's say this customer from here is sending some traffic, some packets to R3. For which destination? Maybe some destination here, let's say. So when the packets land on R3, what R3 will do? It will check its what? Safe table. We are not talking about MPLS, traditional, just before MPLS, I'm talking again back. Let us go back to the pre-MPLS time. In pre-MPLS time, what will happen, service provider? So if R3 router will check its what? Routing table or safe table. In the safe table, it will show that, okay, to go to this particular, let's say this is network X. To go to network X, next stop is what? R5. And then safe table will say to go to basically network X, your next stop is basically actually, like, Routing table will show next stop is R5, but safe table will show next stop is what? R4. And that's the reason what R3 will do. R3 will forward the packet to where? R2. Once the packet lands for on R2 for network X, R2 will open up the IP header, because normally every router must know whose packet it is, where it is to be forwarded. To know that, it has to open the IP header. So it will open, first of all, that 20 microsecond delay will be there. That is separate case. But once R2 will open the route packet, what it will find? Network X. So it will check its what? Routing table, or it will check its safe table. Do you think R2 and R4 will they have this route for network X? No, because this route came into what? BGP. So only R3 and R5 know this is BGP route. R2 and R4 they are not running BGP. What will happen? All the traffic for coming from let's say network Y going towards network X will get dropped. Same way, if the traffic is coming from network X like this, if the packet comes to R4, R4 will also drop. R4 will drop traffic for Y, R4, R2 will drop traffic for X, because they don't know this X and Y. They don't have carry. So before MPLS, what was the requirement? If you want that traffic must flow through your network, service provider's network for the customers routes, what is the requirement? Each and every router in the service provider must have the customer routes. And that's the reason people used to do what? Here also you have to do what? BGP. You have to do here also BGP, here also BGP. That means if you have 1,000 routers, you have to do BGP on 1,000 routers. And that's the reason we have, this is called as what? IBGP. And that's the reason service provider used to do what? Configurations. Service providers used to minimize the configuration. They used to do maybe peer groups. So all that IBGP, so much was requirement was there. What about all these routers? R3, R5, will they carry all these routers in the service provider cloud? They have to be what? They have to carry the full customer routes in their routing table. That means all the routers routing table must be what? Identical. Then only the traffic will flow. That means all the routers have to be what? Maybe of identical hardware configuration. All have to be what? Of the same platform, because the load on each and every router is the same. Everybody is having maybe 1 million routes. If R3 and R5 is having 1 million routes, then R2 and R4 also should have 1 million routes. If an R2 and R4 they don't have 1 million routes, what will happen? Traffic will fail for those missing routes. And that's the reason you used to have what? IBGP. First of all, IBGP configuration, that means the the engineers which are needed by the service provider, they need to be what? Highly skilled in BGP. Their BGP knowledge has to be good. Second thing, please understand, all this thing I'm talking about not today's environment. We are talking about MPLS. As I said, MPLS came in the industry somewhere 20 years back. In those days, you guys, you might not be aware. In those days, CCIs, you know, they used to get paid 20 years back. They used to get paid hourly basis. CCIs used to make big money those days, 20 years back. They used to get hourly basis. Some companies were not able to afford a CCI full time. They used to hire the CCI only for, maybe they will say, okay, you will go and you will come and do the BGP implementation for us. So maybe we require your service only for 10 hours, maybe 20 hours, or maybe 100 hours, like that. And they used to pay them maybe, like that. So manpower cost was very high, costing was very high. Second thing, if you see, service providers investment was also very high. Why? Because now all these routers have to be what? Identical. All the routes have to carry, let's say example, 1 million routes. So the hardware has to be what? Identical. And now what happens, when MPLS came in, same hardware, service provider does not need to upgrade anything. Instead, service providers, if they want, they can downgrade. Instead of upgrading, they can downgrade their hardware. Why? Because if you see now, once I enable MPLS, I need to run BGP only where? R3 and R5. And now what happens? Because of this labeling, R2 and R4, they never learn about the customer routes. R2 and R4, they get only what labels of R3 and R5. And since they know labels of R3 and R5, anything inside the labeled packet can be transported. And that's the reason in MPLS, this this is a concept which is called as what? Atom. Literal. This is a literal, this is a literal term, atom. Atom basically means what? Any transport over MPLS. That means literally you can transport anything over MPLS. You can transport IP packets, you can transport IPX packets, anything blindly, because R2 and R4, they don't check the packet. They're just switching the packet based on what? Labels. And that's the reason now, R3 and R4, they might be having in their routing table 1 million routes. They are having 1 million routes, but R2 and R4, now there is no BGP first of all running, and since there is no BGP, you have only IGP of 1000 routers, let's say. Since service provider is what? 1000 routers, so only maybe they have only maybe 10,000 routes, maybe only 10K routes routing table. So now just see, with MPLS, R2 and R4, the P routers, the P routers, their load has drastically come down from 1 million routes. Now they have to maybe store only maybe 10,000 routes or maybe only 20,000 routes. Just imagine. That means what? Do does the service provider now needs R2 and R4 to be of the same platform as R3 and R5? No. That means maybe service provider, what they can do, they can sell these devices. Because of MPLS, now what they can do, they will remove these devices and sell them maybe on eBay. And then they buy what? Maybe some lower end router who can handle only 10,000, or who can handle maybe your requirement is 20,000 routes, so only 20,000 routes platform router you can just buy and put in place of R2 and R4. So just imagine, out of 1000 routers, if you get like that 100 routers which can be easily downgraded, you sell 100 routers on eBay, and you can buy maybe 100 lower end routers. These are all higher end routers previously. Just imagine 1 million routes you are supporting. Let's assume now you are supposed to handle only 10,000 routes or 20,000 routes, so you don't require the same hardware. So what is one simple thing? Service provider, they can sell off their higher end routers, make money, and whatever money you get from that, you buy maybe lower end routers, and then whatever money is left, the owner of the company, the service provider owner, they can easily go for what? Holidays, vacation. They can go around the world, maybe enjoy their life with the saved money. Or instead of doing this, what service provider can do? Service provider, see, selling these routers and going on vacation. Normally good businessmen won't do all these stupid things. Instead of that, what people would like, good business, and whatever investment once you're done in your business, you will see that you want to make more money out of that investment. That means you want to have what? A higher ROI, return on investment. So what these service providers will do? Now you see, R2 and R4, let's say they're same hardware capacity as R3 and R5, but the load is very less on them. They're running only one IGP OSPF, and the routing table is only there, let's say 20,000 routes only, or 10,000 routes. So that means they have what? Some spare capacity, spare processing power and all. What service provider now, what they started doing is what? They say, okay, in these routers what we have now, R2 and R4, we have spare routers. Let us make this R2 router as a DHCP server. Let us make this guy as what? Maybe a DHCP server. Let us make it as a DHCP server. Let us make R4 maybe like an NTP server. And what they do, they call up their customers and they say, customers, okay, we have started this service. If any one of you, if any one of you need DHCP services, any one of you maybe need NTP services, like that, other applications, they started running some application protocol like DHCP, maybe DNS, maybe NTP, or maybe maybe it could be what, what I'm forgetting. DSCP, NTP, monitoring, SNMP. Maybe let's say we can even provide you SNMP services, monitoring services, maybe syslog services. So monitoring, they started offering services to customers. DSCP services, you want IP addressing, our DSCP server can provide you. And then service providers, they'll tell customers, you have to pay a very small fee per month. If you take DSCP server, maybe one customer you have to just pay maybe maybe $5 a month, like that. Just $5 a month. Just imagine you have 10,000 customers and $5 a month, one customer. So instead of selling one time, selling one time and getting another lower end routers and replacing and doing configuration, and then remaining money going on vacation, instead of that, you're this way you start offering what, some additional services to the customer. This is called as what, managed services business. Service providers went into another vertical which is called as what, managed businesses, managed services. They started selling not only bandwidth, not only connectivity, WAN connectivity. They started also selling what, services, offering services. Some companies, they say you don't need to have engineers, technical engineers to do your DSCP, to do your NTP. We can provide you NTP services for your application. We can provide you DSCP services for applications. So maybe 10,000 customers, all will not agree. Even if just imagine, even if let's say I take only 1% of 10%, they take up these services. So it will be like 1% is like what, out of 10%, 10,000, 1% is like what, maybe 100, right? 100 customers taking up this service, and as I said, per month you're charging maybe, let's say, just $5. So just imagine $500 you're making additional per month. $500 per month. In 1 year, you service provider can make maybe, just as I'm just giving very, I'm taking very low figure. So with the least number of customers and the the fees also, I'm just keeping $5. Normally it can be maybe $10 also, maybe it can be even $50 also for a customer. But just considering that, still service provider can make anything, like maybe $500 a month or maybe $1,000 a month extra without doing anything. Plus, now you don't require CCIs to manage your network. So you don't even have need highly qualified personnel staff, CCIs, because now that much BGP is not there. You are running BGP only on your PE routers. There is no BGP on P routers. Maybe one or two P routers you might be still running BGP. That is okay, but compared to previously, compared to before MPLS, now BGP has come down very low. So this is what service providers liked very much about MPLS, and that's the reason all the service providers in the world just immediately started accepting this new technology and started migrating to MPLS service. The biggest advantage was what? No hardware changes. Another second advantage is what? No, there no need for even downtime also. Without downtime also, if properly planned, the migration can happen. I've already demonstrated that, right? From R1, I did a continuous ping to R6, and what was happening? Traffic, not a single packet was getting dropped when I was migrating, when I was doing MPLS in the cloud between R3, R2, R4, R5, right? Plus now additional new opportunities for doing business, managed services, advanced services, of services like that you started offering to customers. So that's the reason this migration happened. That's the reason MPLS became a huge hit in the market. Let us think what. Okay, guys. So that's the reason. Please understand. If customer is running, let's say customer is running RIP. just going to write R here, R here. So service provider, what customer service provider, what they run? They are running basically what? Your BGP. So BGP is running between where your P routers. So BGP is there. Because of BGP now you are able to carry any number of customer routes. Okay, that is one thing. Now let us see what challenges. The advantages we have seen. Now let us see what challenges, what problems a service provider can face. Now this customer one, what type of routing protocol is running? RIP, right? Suppose I get another customer. Let's say I have one more customer. Let's say this customer 3. Okay, this is customer 3. They also have office. Let's say, let's say let us consider R3 is in. Let us consider R3 is in where? Mumbai. R3 is in Mumbai, and let's say R5 is where? Maybe Delhi. Let us assume this example. The service provider has one, they have offices in Mumbai and Delhi. Like earlier already I explained that Mumbai and Delhi. Most of the people in the world, they are aware of these two cities of India minimum. Some people might be aware of whole India also. But and they're saying everybody knows Mumbai now, everybody knows that Delhi is the capital of India. So these two cities are the most important cities. Some people might be even aware of Bangalore also. Why? Because Cisco has an office in Bangalore. Just imagine, outside US, outside basically you can say Brussels. Okay, like Cisco has offices almost in every city. They have offices in every city in every country. But a big campus like outside US and outside Brussels, Europe. I think they have one of the biggest campus in India. In the whole Asia, the campus in Mumbai, the campus in Bangalore is one of the biggest. Cisco has office in Mumbai also, but that Mumbai office is not so big. Maybe they might be having just one floor or two floors in some commercial building. In Mumbai, Cisco offices it is basically in BKC. It is in some ILFS building. Maybe they have one floor, two floor, or maybe five floors, but not the whole building is not Cisco. But if you go to Bangalore, you'll see that it's a huge complex. Not only one building, they have multiple buildings. So big complex. So it is like it's a very big facility, and because of that, Bangalore is on the world map. So anybody in the networking industry, if you are in the networking industry and if you know Cisco, people will know that Cisco has an office in Bangalore, and that's the reason Bangalore is also an exam center. If you see, there are so many countries in Asia, right? There are so many countries in Asia, but then if somebody has to write an exam in Asia, how many places you can go and write the CCA exam in Asia? In Asia, you can go to where? Dubai, Bangalore, and please understand, Dubai they opened after Bangalore. Bangalore was already before Dubai. Then they opened additionally in Dubai. So Dubai, Bangalore, you have Hong Kong, and then who else is there in Asia? Beijing and Tokyo. Tokyo, Beijing, Hong Kong, Bangalore, and Dubai. Only five locations in Asia. You don't have you don't have a exam center in Singapore. You don't have an exam center in Malaysia. You don't have an exam center in Thailand. You don't have an exam center in Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Afghanistan. So many countries are there in Asia, but Cisco has only five locations for exam in Asia, and one of them is Bangalore. And that Bangalore facility, that Bangalore exam facility is quite big. So many students in one day can give exam almost I think 20 to 25 people I think can give CCA exam in Bangalore. It's a good big facility. I think Dubai is not that big. I don't know. Just telling. So now this is Mumbai and Delhi. Now this service provider, let us call this organize this service provider as what XYZ company. Let's say this is XYZ service provider. So this XYZ has become popular. Now they get what more customer, one more customer they have got. And now see the problem. What this customer? This customer is also they are also running which protocol? RIP. They are also running RIP now. Okay, and then what happens? Suppose so if you when you provide this service, this customer 3, they will send what RIP routes here to R3. And what you have done on R3? On R3 you have already done what? Basically you have gone into BGP and then you have done what command? Redistribute RIP. So once you do redistribute RIP, what happens? This customer 3 RIP routes and customer 1 RIP routes, this also will get redistributed and this also will get redistributed, right? So when both the customer routes will get redistributed into BGP and they land on R5, then what will happen? Moreover, you tell me now, suppose I run on R3 RIP, can I run 2 times RIP? On one single router, can we run 2 times RIP? Because you have two different customers. For two customers, you cannot run RIP 2 times. RIP is only one process. In IPv4, we can run RIP only one time. Like BGP, on one router, you cannot run more than one BGP. Only one single process. OSPF, we can run multiple processes. EIGRP, we can run multiple processes. But RIP, only one process. That means the moment I'll say router RIP and put this link, actually, the moment I advertise this link, I will get routes of customer 3. But what will happen on R3 itself? On R3 itself, what will happen? Customer 1 routes will get forwarded to customer 3 and customer 3 routes will get forwarded to customer 1. What will happen then? Routes, two different customers, routes have leaked. And if routes leak, ultimately what will happen? Their traffic will leak. Some users over here will try to access servers of this customer. Some users of customer might try to access or both these customers. What they will do? They will take this xyz.com to where? Court. They will file a legal damage court case on this XYZ company. They'll say because of this company we lost so much data, we lost millions of dollar information. This is security issue. So this is called as what? This is called as what? Overlapping routing. Customers, two or more customers can run. Suppose, like as I said, we have 100 customers. Is it possible out of 100 customers, maybe this service provider will get 10 customers who might run RIP? Yes, you can get customers because you cannot tell the customer, like customer, see, I have already one customer is running RIP, so customer 3, you cannot run RIP. Customer 3 will say, no, why I should not run RIP? We want to run RIP, we are already running RIP, we don't want to change. So that's the reason. Who decides, who dictates the routing? Customers dictate the routing to the service provider. Service provider cannot dictate the routing to the customer. They cannot explain that their problem, that no, we already have RIP. If the service provider engineers, they tell like this customer that your routes will leak or your data will leak, immediately they will say, no, we don't want this service only. They'll get scared. So you cannot scare, you cannot scare your customers. So you cannot tell all this thing. Customer, whatever customer routing is there. So with RIP, there is a problem. See now another problem. Let's say you have another company. Let's say you have another customer. This is, let's say, customer 2. Let's say this customer 2 is running EIGRP. Yes, very good. This customer is running EIGRP. In EIGRP, it is running what? Maybe what is the AS number? This customer is running, let's say, EIGRP S1, EIGRP AS100. Very good. Okay, like that. So when this customer is running EIGRP AS100, did this customer took permission from anybody to use AS number 100? Do they require any approval from anybody? Do they require approval from Cisco or Iona? No. This AS number in EIGRP is what locally significant. Anybody can use any AS number. So is it possible now, like you have another customer, is it possible that maybe the service provider now tomorrow they get one more customer? They get one more customer like this, let's say. And is it this customer is also running EIGRP, and coincidentally this customer is also running EIGRP S100. Is it possible now like this also? Yes or no? Possible? Two or more customers might be running EIGRP, and two or more customers might be having same AS number. So what will happen now? The moment I'll configure router R3, can I run on R3 two times EIGRP S100? No. Normally, I cannot run two times EI. The moment I'll say router EIGRP 100, it is one process only. The moment I'll advertise this link now in the, what will happen immediately, the routes of this customer will come here, routes of this customer will go there. So again, route leaking. So this is the challenge with RIP and EIGRP routing protocol customer can face, service provider can face, where locally in Mumbai itself, multiple customers routes, multiple customers traffic can leak, and service provider will be in big trouble. Okay, let us assume, that, okay, let's say, for the time being, now let's see now. Okay, this is one problem locally. Now let's assume that there is no RIP. Let's say this is no RIP, and here also let's say this is no EIGRP 200. Let's say this is EIGRP, sorry, not 100, EIGRP 200. So you have two different customers. One is running EIGRP 100 and one is running EIGRP 200. So on R3 now, will the route leak between EIGRP 100 and EIGRP 200? No. On R3 now the routes won't leak because their AS number is different. So AS number is different means what? For the router R3, it is as good as what? Two different processes. So whenever a router learns route from two different processes, what happens? Does the router exchange the routes by default? No, the router never extends the routes of one routing process into other routing process, right? A router can exchange the routes from one process into other process when we configure what? Red redistribution, right? Before redistribution, router will never mix the routes of one process with another process, correct? It stores every process route separately. Okay, no problem. So if you have 10 customers running EIGRP and 10 customers, let's say they have their AS number altogether different. Somebody is 100, somebody is 200, somebody is 300, somebody is 10, somebody is 50, like that. So R3 is happy. Now, what is the requirement? All these routes of all these customers you have to forward to where? To Delhi. Why? Because if you don't forward to Delhi, then their Delhi sites won't be able to communicate with their Mumbai. So I need to do redistribution. So once what I'll do, I'll go into BGP and I'll say redistribute EIGRP 100, redistribute EIGRP 200, redistribute EIGRP 50. Once I do this, what will happen? All these routes, they will become part of BGP and they will land where? On R5 as what? BGP routes now. They will land on R5 as what? BGP routes. What type of route? IBGP route. Only difference will be what now? The origin code now will become what? Question mark, right? Because anything you redistribute into BGP, then redistributed routes origin code is what? Incomplete, question mark. When all these routes of EIGRP 100 and all these routes of, suppose here, let's say here network A is there. Let's assume network A is there, and let's assume this EIGRP 200 network B is there. So when this network A and when this network B lands on R5, okay, now how router 5 will come to know that A is belonging to EIGRP AS100 and B is belonging to EIGRP AS200? How R5 will come to know? It will never come to know. What will happen then? A and B will go here and A and B will also go here. So ultimately what will happen? Delhi customer 2 in Delhi will be able to access what? access what? Routes of customer A in Mumbai, and same way vice versa also. That means now again route leaking, again route leaking locally. Okay, if the AS number is different, routes are stored separately, different. But when the routes are redistributed via BGP and when they will land on the other end the routes will get mixed up. All the EIGRP customers will receive every all the other EIGRP routes, yeah, other EIGRP customers route mix up. Same thing will apply for RIP also. Same thing will apply for OSPF also. Even though suppose I have 10 customers running 10 different OSPF, for every customer I use what a different process ID on R3. So I receive routes from every customer in a different process. I store them differently. But when I'll do redistribute, I'll redistribute OSPF process 10, OSPF process 20. In BGP, BGP will redistribute and what forward the routes toward its neighbor R5. And when the route will land on R5, they are no longer OSPF, they are no longer EIGRP, they are no longer RIP. They all become as what? BGP routes. And when you have this side redistributions, when if I go into EIGRP and say on R5, redistribute BGP, what will happen? Everything will get redistributed. Everybody will get everybody's route leaking. So this is not feasible. This is not practical like that. This is not practical. So what is the requirement of the service provider? If you have different customers, you should always, you should always think of what problems. You should not think. You should never say like, no, I will never have problems. You should always plan what if I have problem. If I have problem, what I will do. What will be the solution? Like that, if you have mentality, you are preparing like that. See, see, if you see any country's army, any country's military, what they do every day, they are doing what exercises every day. They do what? Some kinds of, you know they do some kinds of testing, military exercises. Why they do all those kinds of things? Because you don't know tomorrow what will happen. They always keep themselves what? Fit and ready for any case of emergency. There is a saying in English. What that saying says? If you perspire more in times of peace, you suffer less in times of war. Perspire more in times of peace, you suffer less in times of war. Same thing applies for you guys also. Today, if you practice more, then when you will go for your real exam will be like a child's play. Today, if you are playing, your real exam will be a challenge later. The more you will struggle, the more you will practice, the more benefit you'll get. Just watching my videos is not going to take you anywhere. After watching my videos, you should create your topologies. Don't wait for me or anybody to. It doesn't take more than 10 minutes. And while practicing, why not do it? Why not create the topologies? Why not assign the IP addressing? Why not do the routing yourself? What harm is there to do? You are doing only in a day, you are giving only 2 hours for my learning. So you are attending only 2 hours session. Maybe I don't know, maybe all of you are working for 10 hours. Okay, after 10 hours, you are again spending 2 hours. But if possible, suppose if if you take one more hour from your schedule, whatever how much busy, no matter how much busy you are, if you can derive for it, this is for your own good. If you again extract 1 hour extra for yourself, all this thing you're doing it for whom? For yourself, for your maybe better career, better job, to make more money ultimately. You guys are all doing all this thing. We all do. We keep on learning for what? Because if we don't keep on learning, somebody else will learn, and somebody else will learn means what? Somebody else will be going ahead of me. There is always competition. So that's the reason we need to keep on learning. Some of the students, they are still writing to me, sir, can you share this file? I think what is so great in this sharing? Why this is only 5-10 router topology? How much time it takes? In E or in GNS, it is just drag and drop 10 route 10 devices, connect them. To set up the topology will take not more than 10 routers. Topology will should not take you more than 10 minutes. That is 10 minutes job. But some people now are waiting like more, almost like waiting for maybe for 1 month. They are still waiting for me to get the topology and all like that. I don't like this. You cannot just spare 10 minutes to create a topology, and after creating topology one time only you have to do the configuration, then save the configuration. Like how, see how I saved my configuration one time. I do, then I do the copy paste. They have said all the configuration R1 to R12 whatever. So whatever is needed is over here. I can save the configuration. I can add the configuration here, whatever if I want to put. Now, as I said, on R1 will not require, we will not do redistribution into IGP. So I can just go to this here. I remove this line. It is only one time configuration. That also I can share. At least configuration files also I can share with you. That is not a problem. But don't wait. If I don't send, that doesn't mean you will not do. You should have some effort of doing this. At least you guys, in your time, what happened to my R3? Why R5 went down? You guys have such so nice, so good simulators available. GNS3, IOU, EVNG, so many types of simulators are available freely to you. Images are available on the internet for you to practice. Just imagine for me, 17 years back, 2003, 2002, 17, 18 years back when I started my CCI journey, what options I had? Only physical devices, no simulator, no simulator. And when I started my journey for CCI, I had only 5 routers because very expensive those days routers. That also very lower end 2500 series routers I had. I built my own rack because I was already a trainer for CCNS, CCNP. So I already had 2 3 routers. So I purchased a couple of routers more. So I had only just 5 routers with me, but physical routers. So just think, physical routers I cannot keep on changing the cabling. I cannot keep on adding. With 5 routers, whatever I'm teaching you guys today, BGP, MPLS, all with a setup of only 5 routers, I was able to practice everything. If somebody asks me to teach BGP in out 100%, I don't require 10 routers, or I don't require, I can do with even 4 or 5 routers itself. I can do with five routers. Trust me, I used to carry 5 routers every day from home to my school, my training school. I had my own training school, so I used to carry every day. Every day, I used to carry 5 routers, 5 physical routers in one. I made a suitcase, custom built to carry 5 routers. Between each router, I was keeping what, a thermocol. I cannot keep the routers at home. Those days we did not have all these remote facilities, TeamViewer, or maybe we this thing, AnyDesk and all this kind of remote access softwares. Internet was not good. I was having, it was basically your dial-up internet we were having. Cable internet also was not there that time. 2002, very expensive. 2002, 2003. Internet was not good that time. So I have to carry, literally I have to carry every day. I had a car. I, I cannot carry myself that 5 routers, so I used to pay monthly. You know, that my school, my our building, my house building, where I had our flat, that watchman, that security guard, I told him every day, from my home, you'll put this bag in my car, and then when I come back in the night, you'll bring my this bag to my home, and for that I will pay you. And same way, when I used to when I used to go near my office, the office boy used to come and he used to take it to the training school. Why I have to do that? Because suddenly, I want to practice today. I'm learning something, and then if I'm learning something, I cannot wait next day to go to the school center and training center and do the practical. Maybe 2 o'clock in the night, I used to start the routers, and I'm reading something, and after reading I want to just test what is good, like that. Because sometimes textbooks are wrong. In BGP Jeff Doyle Volume 2. If you see, Jeff Doyle Volume 2 has, there were conflicts in one chapter. Some definition is there, in another chapter the definition is different. Then how to know which definition is correct? When I read chapter 2 in Jeff Doyle Volume 2, routing TCP/IP by Jeff Doyle, that textbook, I I try to I try to memorize the definition of what, that attribute. If you guys remember, in BGP, the attribute called as what, local S. So that local S BGP community attribute, that definition, I tried to memorize. I tried to understand what is it, and then, okay, I said, okay, now I know local S. Now when I started reading chapter 3, and when I came that, in chapter 3, I had a physical book, not no soft copy, also no PDF that time also. So I had a physical book, hard copy. In that hard copy, when I came to chapter 3, page number 284, that was the page number 284. On page number 284, it was, Jeff Doyle is again explaining about what local as community attribute. And when I read that definition over there, I find it is not the same as chapter 2, page number 111. So I said, now what is this? Which is correct? Page number 111 definition is correct, or page number 284 definition is correct? Which one is correct? How do I know? Guys, please switch off your video. Please switch off your cameras. Thank you. So how do I know? Nobody is there around to ask. I cannot ask Jeff Doyle, what is this, which is correct and all. So what to do? I just went to my best friend. And who is my best friend? My router. Because router never gives a conflicting output. You do something on one router, you do the same thing on 10,000 routers also, the output will be same. If I change something, then output changes. Garbage in, garbage out. If I give garbage to my router, router will give back to me garbage. So like that. That's the reason I used to carry those 5 devices. Then slowly it started increasing the devices. Then when I had 12 devices altogether, 12 routers and switches altogether, then now it is impractical to carry every day from home. And then I kept that whole rack where in my center only. Then no option, you have to wait for the next day, go to the center and do your practicals. So this is my journey. I did not had any hard any iOS, any this software kind of thing. And now people have become so lazy, they don't want to even create the net file. You just take a photo of this screen and you can create your own topology. But that also they don't want. For everything they want net files, for everything they want configurations. As if like tomorrow is the exam for them. They're going for exam tomorrow. That they can't waste time in doing all this thing. So what to do now? For service provider, this is a big challenge. This is whole mess. Nobody will like this service. Okay, if EIRP number is different, if you don't have any customers running RAPE, if you have only customers running OSPF and EIRP, when you receive the route from all this EIRP and OSPF customers and their AS number and process ID is different, routes the routes are locally separated. Routes do not get mixed up, but the moment you redistribute into BGP, everything is gone. So what to do? What solution? So was the simplest, the first solution was what? No, let us have the challenge. What is the challenge? What if I will have customers which are running the same protocol? Like let's say I have 100 customers, and what is the possibility all the 100 customers will run RIP only? Let's say, or I have EIGRP and all the EIGRP customers are running, let's say, EIGRP process EIGRPS number 100 only. So what to do in that situation? What the service providers engineers they started thinking how to do this? How these MPLS people engineers started thinking what solution? So the first solution which came in mind, like you do a brainstorming kind of thing. The first solution is what? Okay, for every customer. See, we are talking about, as I'm telling, no, don't think of today's time. Think go back 20 years. So what will be the solutions? Everything is what? Like physical solutions people is coming. What customer said? Okay, you have 10 customers running EIRP 1000. Sorry, let's say EIRP 100, and you want each customer routes to you receive and keep them separate. No two customer, no two EIRP AS 100 customers route should get mixed up. That is your requirement. Okay, what do you do? For every customer, you provide a separate PE router, and this is called as what? Dedicated PE approach. This was known as what? Dedicated PE approach. For every customer, separate PE router. It's like this. Maybe let me draw this for you. Let's say I have here customers, multiple customers. Let's say different customers like that. Let's say 5 customers. So I want, what is my requirement? I want to keep every, let's say all are EIGRP 100. What is my requirement? I want to keep every customer's route separate. What I do? I connect them to every customer. I provide every separate router. This is separate. So now what will happen? Each customer's route are stored where? In separate devices, routers. Very good. Yes, very good. Problem is solved. Now no two customer routes you are receiving and they are getting mixed up. Okay, so up to so far it is good. Okay, but now the question comes what? All these routes, whatever, while receiving you have kept them separate, right? But you have to transport this route to the other end. From Mumbai, you have to transport this route to where? Delhi. So ultimately, you have to get this routes where? To some central router. So if the routes come here, ultimately what happens then? They will get mixed up here then, because here now you cannot run five five times the EIGRP 100 on this router, mixed up. Moreover, we still have the problems of what? The routes getting mixed up over here. Let's say I don't put this, I keep separate only. Then from separate routers, I forward them to separate routers via BGP. Okay, but once it land on the other end, how the other P router in Delhi will come to know which customer route is which one? Maybe here this is customer, this is customer is having A, this is route B, route C. All A, B, C, D, all these routes will become mixed up where? On R5. So that problem is still there. So this dedicated PE approach, first of all, is it feasible? Is it practical? You have 100 customers. For 100 customers, just to keep each customer's route separate, can a service provider deploy 100 routers for one router for every customer? No, practically impossible. It's not economically feasible. Service provider will be in big trouble if they implemented this. So what is the solution now? The solution, let us see. This dedicated PE approach is very good. You are, when you receive the routes, What is your requirement? No two customer routes should get mixed up, right? That is the reason. For that, dedicated P approach was doing that job. But the thing is what practically not possible like that. So what you do? What do? You take a one router. Let's say I take a one router now. Let me just because this is. Let us have this now. Yes. So you take one router now. Okay. You take one router. This is a router. Let's say. And now, what do? You connect all the five customers to the same one physical device. But what is my requirement? I want to give every customer what? A separate router, dedicated P router, but not dedicated physical P. What I can do? Can I provide them a virtual router? So for every customer, what I do? I create what? A virtual router inside. So this is called as what? Dedicated P. But the dedicated P is not a physical P. It is what? A virtual P. So can I create in one physical router? Physically, one router. But virtually, for every customer, can I have a separate router inside? Yes. This virtual router, we call it as what? VRF. Virtual routing and forwarding instance. What is the meaning of router? When we say router basically means what? A router basically means what? A device which will have what? Its own routing table. A router basically means device which will have its own interface. So what happens? Physically, this router, let's say, has what? Maybe 10 interfaces. So let's say this is, this is E0 or E0. This is E1, E2, let's say E3, because we are talking about 20 years back. In 20 years back, you had only Ethernet interfaces. Today, you have gigabit interfaces. Today, you have maybe 10 gig interfaces. Today, some people have 100 gig interfaces. Okay, but go back 20 years, you had only Ethernet interfaces. You know, for in 2000 when I started teaching CCNA, when I was teaching CCNA to students in 2000 for showing switching practicals, I had purchased one Cisco switch. Only one Cisco switch I had that time. Till 2002, I had only one Cisco switch. And what was that switch? Any idea? It was 1900 series switch. And 1900 series switch, what was the Ethernet? What were the ports? They were only Ethernet ports, not even fast Ethernet. It was only Ethernet. And now even if you see the routers also, what I had, 2500 series routers, they were all having only Ethernet interfaces. So just imagine till 2004, I was only playing with Ethernet type interfaces in the labs. So a router basically means what? A router is a device which has what? Some interfaces, and a router is a device which is maintaining what? A routing table. And now when I say for one customer, I'm going to provide what? One router, not physical virtual. That means this virtual router should have what? Its own routing table. So every virtual router will have its own routing table, but every virtual router will have what? Physical interface, not virtual interface. So previously, E0, E1, E2, E3, E4, or E5, all the interfaces, the physical interface of this router, let's say this router is R3. So all the physical interfaces of this router R3, they were part of which routing table? This router is also maintaining what? Its own routing table, right? And that routing table, we call it as now what? Global routing table. So far, no, when you don't have any VRF requirement, then we simply call the router's routing table as what? Routing table. But now, since you have VRFs also, so the correct definition for the routing table, we call it as what? Global Unicast IPv6 routing table. And by default, all the interfaces of any router, they always belong to where? the global routing table. If you do show IP route, and if the interfaces are up, you have done no shutdown. And if the interfaces have some IP address, you assign some IP addresses, what you will see? You always see what directly connected. Like example over here now. Let us take our diagram. Let us go to, let's say I go to where R2. If you see, R2 has three interfaces, right, connected. And R2 has three interfaces, three IP addresses. So if I go to R2 now, and if I do show IP route, and I say show me connected. So if you see, I will see all the physical interfaces of my router. They are always part of which routing table? The global routing table. See, so the command show IP route basically means what I want. I'm telling my router, show me the global routing table. By default, all the interfaces we create, all the interfaces we assign IP addresses, all the interfaces which are up, by default they will be member of what? Global routing table. It is similar to switch also. If you have a switch, let's say you have a 24 port switch, let's say simple, very common switch, let's say 2900 2960 switch. Suppose some you have 2960 switch, 24 port switch. By default, all the 24 ports will be member of which VLAN? VLAN 1. There is always VLAN 1 existing, right? And all the interfaces are by default member of what? VLAN 1. So same way over here now. If I create, say, one first VRF, and if I put now E0 in VRF1, then what will happen? This E0 will no longer be present in where? In the global table. Why? Because one interface cannot be part of more than one routing table. So if one interface is in global routing table, then it cannot be in any of the VRF table routing table. If the interface is in one VRF routing table, then it cannot be in the global routing table, nor it can be in the other. That means one interface can be part of only one VRF at one time. Same like the switches VLAN. One interface, by default all are member of VLAN 1. Then what we do? On the switches we create some VLAN, and then we go to some interface and we say, hey interface, you are member of VLAN 10. When once I do that command, what happens? It will immediately become member of now VLAN 10. Now if I do show VLAN, what I see? It is not existing in VLAN 1. So same, the same example for VRF. So VRF is like on layer 3, VRF is like what? VLAN on layer 2. One interface cannot be part of two VRF, correct? That is one thing. Second, can one VRF contain multiple interfaces? Can one VRF contain multiple interfaces? Yes. Same like your VLAN. One VLAN you can put 10 interfaces in one VLAN, right? But one interface cannot be part of 10 VLANs. The same thing here on the router. Router one interface cannot be part of multiple VRFs, or cannot be part of at the same time. It will be in one VRF also, and it will be in the global table also. No, not possible. One VRF can have, suppose some customer, let's say some customer, they have two offices in Mumbai. So I will not create two VRF because the customer is same. They have two sites. So can I put them both in the same VRF? Yes. So VRF can be same. Physical sites can be multiple. So one VRF, can it contain multiple interfaces? Yes. Clear, guys? So with this VRF concept now, is 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 the solution scalable? Is the solution economical? Yes. The solution is scalable also. Solution is scalable, economical also. You have 100 customers. If you want, you create 100 VRFs for the customers, and you connect 100. Normally in the real world, nobody will do that, because having 100 customers on one single physical device, if that physical device fails, 100 customers will get affected. So in real world, people will have maybe somebody they will have some service provider will have some policy. No, no, one router, one router we will have one router. They can have some policies. No, no, we can have only one router for maybe every 20 customers. For 20 customers, one router. So that tomorrow, if any one router fails, only 20 customers will get affected. So it all depends. Maybe another service provider will say, no, no, for 100 customers, we'll have only one router. We don't care. If the router fails, 100 customers are affected, no problem. We can tell them, go home, watch some movie. Today, no internet. Yes, it happens. Many times my service, many times my internet goes down. I call up my service provider, internet. You only tell my people are working. Sorry, I cannot do. There is some problem somewhere. There is some power failure somewhere, some places, or sometime you'll say somebody has cut my fiber. The fiber is cut, so connectivity is lost. My people, there, my engineer or staff is working on that. So sir, please bear. There won't be internet for next 5 years. Okay, you can't see now. If you have your mobile data, then watch Netflix on your mobile data, or go and sleep. Sorry, nothing can be done. Happens like that. So clear, guys. What was the requirement? You don't want no two customer routes should get mixed up. How no two customers route can get mixed up? By keeping them separate. If you want their two customers route should not get mixed up, you keep them separate. What was the approach? Get the routes on two different devices, physical, but then not scalable. Okay, if not physical, let us get the routes virtual in virtual devices, and that is the called as what? VRF. VRF is nothing but like a router inside a router, like how VLAN. VLAN is what? Virtual LAN. It's like a virtual LAN inside a switch. Physically, it's not like physical route, physical sub segment. The same way, VRFs are like what? Virtual router. That's the reason I have drawn where inside that dotted. I have drawn them dotted inside. It's like they are in the memory of the router. Okay. So far so good. Okay. So this VRF now solved the problem of receiving the routes of two customers, even if they're running what same. So even if they're running what same routing protocol like RAPE or EIGRP AS100. Another problem also gets solved. There could be what? Overlapping IP addresses. See, every customer knows that they have to use private IP addresses. So is it possible that there could be customer who is having who is using a subnet, let's say A, and is there also a possibility another customer is it also possible that another customer also might be using the same subnet? Yes, because everybody is free to use what? Private IP address, right? So one customer can run 10111 subnet, another customer can also run 10111. So this is called as what? Overlapping. Overlapping IP addresses, overlapping routes of customers. Customer routes can overlap. So just imagine, two different customers, you're receiving the routes, you're receiving the route from two different customers with in two different routing protocol. One customer is running OSPF, let's say another customer is running EIGRP. But the problem is what? Both the customers, they are having what? Same, they are using same network, because private IP. For private IP, you don't require anybody's permission. One customer is also having 10.1.1.0/24, another customer is also. So when R3 will, suppose after redistribution, this 10 dot will go how many times from R3 to R5? It will go only one time only. After redistribution, while receiving, you stored the route separately. But when you redistribute, on R5 only one 10.1.1 will land, and then now this R5, how it will come to know that this 10.1.1 it has to send to customer A, or it has to send to customer B, or it has to send to customer C? will never come to know. It will redistribute. It will send to all the customers. So VRF now solves the problem. When you receive the routes, even if two customers are having overlapping IP addresses, even if let's say the two customers are having overlapping routing protocols, still no two customer routes will get mixed up in VRF, because every VRF, whatever the routes my router receives in one VRF, it will never forward the routes to another VRF. So on R3 now, with this VRF concept, this is very good. We have achieved our requirement. VRF allows the service provider to keep what? Every customer's routes separately. Every customer's overlapping routes also separately. Every customer's overlapping routing protocols also separately. Before, without VRF, on one single router, can I run 5 times RIP? No. Now with VRF, can I run 50 times RIP on single router? Yes. Because now I'm running VRF routing where in each VRF is as good as what? A separate virtual router. So there are like 50 VRF means 50 routers. On every router, can I run RIP? Yes. Can I run EIGRP 150 times? Yes. 100 times? Yes. So this VRF solved that problem of overlapping address. Now the next challenge. What is the next challenge? From one end you have to forward the routes to other end. So this challenge is still there now. This challenge is still there now. This is R3. Let's say this is R3, right? This is R3, and let's say this is this is what you see. Let us say we call this. Let's say this is R9. What you see here R9. Let's say this is R1. What you see here R1. Let's say this is R7. What you see there. Let's say. So for this here, I have one VRF. For this one, I have maybe another VRF. For third customer, maybe I have another VRF. The separate interfaces like that. Now suppose all these routes come to R3 here, and then from R3 what happens? This guy is also having A, this one is having B, and as I said, now let's say I have one more customer. Let's say he has two sites, and now he also has what? Overlapping. So here if you see, you have network A here also, you have network A here also, two different customers using same subnet. Okay, they are not getting mixed up. They don't get mixed up here. They don't get mixed up here. Problem solved. But now these routes, what I need to do? I need to transport them from Mumbai to where? Delhi. For that I need, who is my transport mechanism? BGP. BGP is going to do that job for me, right? So when I redistribute into BGP, this network A, will it be advertised two times to router 5? No. Network A will go only one time. A, B, C, all these routes. Yeah. So what will happen on R5 now? R5 does not know this network A belongs to which customer. What will happen? Whatever it will R5 will receive from BGP, it will advertise all A, B, C, D, E to this all the customers here. So this problem is not getting solved. VRF, while receiving the routes, it is keeping the routes separately. It allows you to run the same protocol multiple times, but transporting the route from one end to the other end cannot help. So now how to solve this problem? To solve this problem now, okay, let me again first remove this. No, R5 should not receive the routes. When R3 will forward the routes through BGP to R5, R5 must get information that okay, this route A belongs to, let's say, customer 1. This route B belongs to, let's say, customer 2. This route C belongs to, let's say, customer 3. That additional information is needed so that R5 will clearly say, okay, A, you go to customer 1, okay, B, you go to customer 2, C, you go to customer 3. A, okay, you belong, this second A, you belong, another A belongs to, let's say, customer 2. How it is possible? How to do this? You know, first of all, your customer is sending to me. Customer is sending like R1, R9, this R7, R11, all these customers, all these customers. They're saying going to send the routes to R3. How they are going to send the route? What type of route are they going to send? Normal routes. Normal routes, what we call them? This route A, B, C, D, whatever these routes are there, they will come to our in the VRF. They are what normal routes. If you remember in MPLS, I said normal packets. Traffic customer always forward what type of packets? IP packet, normal packets. So same way, what is this normal route? Normal routes are nothing but what IPv4 routes. These are only IPv4 routes. And now this IPv4 route, if you redistribute into BGP, BGP will carry them as what? IPv4 routes. And if this IPv4 routes land where on R5, R5 will get confused. So you receive the routes, normal routes, but if you transport the routes from one end to the other end normal, what will happen? The other end will get confused. If you receive the routes normal packets, if you receive normal packet from customer, you transport the routes, you not transport the packets normal, then what will happen? Every router will do that monkey business. Every router will spend 20 microsecond delay. No, to solve that, we did what? MPLS labeling. So customer is sending you normal, everything normal. Routes also he will send normal. Traffic also he sends normal. But you cannot transport in your cloud normal. Why? Because if you send normal, no use. So what they thought of? They said that okay, whatever route is coming from customer A, when the routes come in this VRF, what we should do? We should add some identification, some unique identification to that router, to that route, so that every customer route can be uniquely identified. Every customer routes can be uniquely identified. So if you see, let's say I decided for this customer one, I created a VRF. I say VRF, I created a VRF, let's say I say customer one, VRF name, I say VRF name, let's say customer one, C1. So in this C1, let's say I decided one number. Let's say I said, okay, customer one, your number, let's say your number in like how in label I decided some numbers 10, 20 like that. So same, let's say I decided, okay, customer one, your number is 100. Now second customer 2, C2. This is C2. For C2, can I have again VRF number 100? No. For maybe this customer I have 200. So what service providers they do? They said, okay, let us have for every customer some unique number, unique ID. So every VRF now will have what? A unique ID. And this ID is now called as what? RD, route distinguisher. And now when you receive this route, this A route is coming. So when this A is getting transported now, when you are redistributing this route of customer 1A, and when R3 will forward this route customer route A, where to R5, it will carry what? That sticker of what? 100. It will be like 100A or A100, whatever, doesn't matter. Then another, let's say another customer also has A, route A. Another customer, let's say this customer, if you see customer 3 has route A, but what is his ID? 300. So another customer Will it be also like A only? Will only A go? No. A will be now we having what? A sticker of what? 300. So when the routes land on R5, are they landing on R5 normal routes? No. Now the routes are no longer normal. They are not IPv4 routes. They have what? Some additional information, that is like RD information is there with the route. So based on this now R5 will say, okay, this A route, this is route A 10.1.1.0/24. Okay, whom should I send? Oh, it is having RD 100. So let me see. It will check its own VRF. Do I have a VRF? Yes, I have VRF. Do I have a VRF whose RD is 100? Yes. Okay. Let's say no. This is let's say this customer one is RD, or this customer RD is 100. So this is like this is VRF. This is let's say VRF C1, and for this RD1. So what will happen? He say okay R 100A. Okay, I'm forwarding to you here because you belong to this VRF. Why you belong to this VRF? Because I have a VRF who is having the same ID 100. 300A. It will say oh 300A. Okay, you belong to VRF C3 maybe. Let's say this is VRF C3. Here RD is what? Let's say 300. So I will forward, you will forward, you will go where? Here. And this solve the problem. So this concept of RD, attaching the RD to every customer's route, makes the route in the service provider cloud what? Unique. Every customer route now become what? Unique. No two customer routes will ever get mixed up. Let's say now every customer is using the same subnet 10.1.1. Like every customer is having A here also, A here also. Everybody is having A. Still, what will happen with VRF? First of all, because of VRF, every customer's network A, you're keeping them separate. No two customer routes getting mixed up. Yes, very good. Then, when from the VRF, when the routes you're redistributing into BGP, what is happening? The routes are not going as A every time. Now routes is also having what? Some additional information to make them what? Unique. And what is that additional information? RD. Right? That additional information is what? RD. And because of this now, the route is not like normal IPv4 route. So what is the format of this route? What is this route called as now? This route in the service provider cloud, the customer route in the service provider cloud is now called as what? VPN v4 route. And now, what is this RD? What exactly? I'm just told you, I'm just saying like it is like 100, 200, but do you think it is really like 100 and 200? No. The correct syntax, the correct format of RD is what? It's basically made up of what? Two numbers. AS colon NN. Now this should ring bells to you. If you guys, do you know what is this? Can somebody tell me what is the meaning of this? This is not something new. What is this? We have already done this. I have already explained. Yes, it is what? What is it? It is extended community in BGP. Remember, I said BGP is flexible protocol to support future technologies. It is what you add new features. So extended community was added for this reason. The RD is what? It's like an extended community of BGP because only BGP can do this magic. All your IGPs cannot do this. So when this requirement came, BGP, what they did, they added this community attribute in BGP. So basically, this RD is using what? Extended community of BGP. And that also what in what format? Is the new format, AS colon NN. Because originally the community was in which format? Old format, only NN. No, you don't require. And if you guys remember, how big is this now? IPv4 is how normal route is how much? IPv4 how many bits? 32 bits, right? What about AS colon NN? AS colon NN is basically what? This is 32 bit. and now this is also 32 bit. That means this RD is, how big is this RD? RD is 64 bit. So how big is VPN v4 route? VPN v4 route is how big? 96 bit, because A is already 32 bit, and this is basically, let's say this is like 1 colon 100. So 1 is 32 bit and 100 is also 32 bit. So 32, 32, 32, 96 bit long. So VPN v4 route is 96 bit long. So just imagine, how many routes you can identify uniquely. No two, even if all the customers are running the same route, even if they are using the same subnet, still every customer route can be kept separate uniquely. No two customer routes can mix up. So now if you see, only BGP can carry this new type of route. And what is this new type of route? We call it as what? VPN v4 route. How big is this VPN v4 route? 96 bit. Why? Because IPv4 is already 32, and this AS colon NN, this extended community, is 64 bit. AS is 64 bit number, NN is also 64 bit number. Clear? So what is the definition? What is this definition of this? So now, is every customer's route going separate? Is every customer routes getting mixed up? Two customer routes getting mixed up? While receiving, are they getting mixed up? No. While forwarding from one end to the other end, are they getting mixed up? No. So all your problems solution is there. Yes. And when every customer now, okay, let me remove everything again now. If every customer, let's say every customer now, let's say like this, see, let me use a color different now. Let's say this is R1. Then let me use a different plus customer here. Let's say this is, and then the third color, let me use this one. Let's say, okay. So for every customer, we create what? A separate VRS. And now every customer's route, is it flowing separately? Is every customer route, like let's say customer, you see customer 2 here, our router 7 and 8, when they are sending the traffic, logically, is the traffic going separately from R7 to R8? Suppose this customer has, let's say, network A, and here let's say this customer has network, let's say M. Then another customer, let's say customer 1 also has, let's say customer also has A, and customer also has, let's say, B. And this side, this customer has C, this customer has say D. And then this customer, let's say he has again, let's say D, and he has maybe, let's say, G. And this side he has, let's say, customer route M, and he has customer, maybe he has a, maybe, let's say, route T, like this. So now the communication, if you see multiple customers, are they having overlapping routes? Yes, you see A here also, A here also, B here also, then M here also possible. Yes, right? Then is this possible that this customer is running, let's say, as I said, this is, let's say, EIGRP 100, and is this also possible, EIGRP 100? Yes, possible. So now if you see, even though the routing protocol is overlapping, even though the customers are having overlapping IP addresses, but because of VRF now, the routes, when we receive the route from the customer, are every customer's route kept separately? No two customers routes getting mixed up? Yes. Then when you are transporting this route from here, from one end to the other end inside the cloud, inside this cloud, when I'm transporting from here to this side, at this time also, are the routes, every customer routes are going separately from one end to the other end? Yes. If you see customer, let's say customer 1 AB, how customer 1 A will look like? As I said, A will have, let's say, I'll say A100. It's like maybe A, or maybe A1 colon, let's say 1. Another customer A route, let's say this customer 2 route, how it will look like? It will be like A1 colon 2. So if you see this whole thing, is it unique? So when this route land on R5, R5 clearly knows, oh, this A, it belongs to 1 colon A, 1 colon 1. 1 colon 1 basically means what over here? 1 colon 1 is here, 1 colon 2 is here, this is 1 colon 2, this is 1 colon 1, same way. So whatever I've decided, let's say this is 1 colon 3, S colon A, S, N, N, R, D. This side also it will be same. So when R5 receives a route, it will see, okay, this I am receiving a route 10. Now where should I forward? Whom should I give it? Because R5 will not come to know if it only comes as A. But now A has come with what? Additional tag, additional sticker. And what is that additional sticker? 1 colon 1. That is like RD. So now it says, okay, well, since it is 1 colon 1, what I'll do? I'll forward this guy where? Here. Okay, I receive A here, 1 colon 2. Okay, 1 colon 2, A is supposed to go where? Over here. So now because of this mechanism, are the routes getting mixed up? No two customer routes will ever get mixed up. Then second thing, is the traffic, now the traffic for every customer, will it go separately? Suppose if I do ping, let's say I do ping from network C from here. This network C, from if here I'm pinging, I'm saying ping, I'm pinging A. I say ping A. When I do ping A, whatever is that IP address, ping A, let us assume ping A is something, let's say 10.1.1.0. So when I'm pinging this network A IP address, this ping, who will respond? Will it be forwarded to clearly to R1, or will it be forwarded to R7? Because if you see, R7 also has A here. Here is also A, here is also A. So when this ping will come, how this ping will get forwarded? The ping ultimately physically, it will come here like this physically. And first of all, R4 and R2, they don't know about A, B, C, D. Why? Because they are not running BGP. They are running only OSPF. So they have only their internal route, but they have what? Unique labels. So because of the label, they don't see inside IP address. Because if they see the inside IP address, then the packet will get dropped because they don't know where is A and B. So all these private IP addresses, they are not aware of the customer routes. Still the traffic lands on R3. Now R3, how R3 will know that the packet has to go, this packet for 10.1.1.1 has to be forwarded to R1, or it has to be forwarded to R3. How it will come to know? Because now the packet is coming with what? See, for the packet is coming with not with VRF now. This RD is only for routes. But what about the traffic? But what about the traffic? For the packets, the traffic packets, it's not, they are not going to come with 1 colon A. Like 10.1.1.1 packet will not carry a sticker of 1 colon A. Then what happens? When you receive the route, when we redistributed the routes in BGP, the routes became what? VPN v4 route. Now when the routes became VPN v4 route, what the BGP of R3 does? If you guys remember when I said, like when we run LDP, what it does? If a router is there, it is having connected routes, static routes, IGP routes, and BGP routes. So does LDP generate labels for BGP routes? No. Why LDP does not? Because LDP says BGP will generate labels for its own route. And now you see, when we redistribute, is BGP having those routes? Yes. So what BGP does for every route it receives through this VRF after redistribution. For every VPN v4 route, it generates what? For A, it generates what? A label. And by default, BGP will also start the labeling from which number? 16 onward. Let's say on R3, LDP has already used the number from 16 to let's say 100. So BGP now will use the next available number from 1. The range of that label number is common for LDP and BGP. It's not like separate range. Huh? BGP will not start again from 16. No. If if LDP has already used the number from let's say 16 to 100, then BGP will say, okay, network A, I'm generating a label for 101, and then this label information BGP will also exchange with its what? Its neighbor. It will tell all the routes, when all the routes it will forward here, that time it will also forward the list of labels. So BGP also, like LDP, they will also exchange what? List of labels their BGP has generated. And now this LFIP table. LFIP table is whose table? Is it only LDP table? No. LFIP table is whose table? It is a common table, like a routing table. Routing table is not only table for BGP or OSPF. Routing table is a common table where every routing protocol can install their route. So same way this LFIP will contain labels of LDP also, and it will contain labels of BGP also in the LFIP. We'll see. I'll show you all that when we do actual practical. So because of this now labeling the traffic, so when the label comes with 101 on R5, from R3, when ping comes, R3 says okay, this is having a which label? 101. So since it is 101, that means I have to forward this packet to where? Customer A. Suppose for this label, for this customer, this network A of customer 2, maybe it has decided a label number, let's say 115. So when this customer 2 from here, he does a ping, he says ping A. When he is doing ping A, the packet will come like this. R5 will put a label number of what? 115 it will put. And then like this it land, it comes here on R5. When R5 comes, it says, okay, what is the label? 150. Okay, 115 I gave to which route? A route. Which customer? Customer 2. Okay, you will go there. And because of this, every customer's traffic will flow uniquely. First, how the routes get exchanged uniquely, separately because of RD. And now how the actual customers traffic will flow separately. No two customers traffic will get mixed up, because for every customer route there will be what? A unique label. And who generates the routes for customer? Who generates the label for customer routes? BGP, because they are BGP routes. Once the route becomes BGP routes, LDP says, sorry, I'm not going to generate label for this route. So BGP says, okay, LDP, no problem. We can both enjoy life. You do your job, I'll do my job. You generate labels for IGP routes, static routes. Okay, I'll generate labels for my own routes. We can both live happily together. No need to fight, no need to conflict. We can live together peacefully. Correct? Clear, guys? Let me start rubbing again. So BGP once the routes enter the VRS, they get the sticker of what? RD. And when those routes with the sticker of RD, when they get redistributed into BGP, they become what? VPN v4 routes. So BGP VPN v4 route, what BGP says, okay, now I will also generate what? A label, unique label. So it is not for the, it's not like along with the RD, now the route, label is also going. Label is going separately because label is meant for what? Traffic. RD is meant for what? The route. First, you have to exchange the routes, and then when actual traffic will come, the traffic packets must be what? Labeled. So now there are two protocols who are generating labels, LDP and BGP. So when you have like this, what is ultimately happening? Is every customer traffic moving flow uniquely? Is customer A traffic, let's say customer 1 traffic, is it going across like this logically to their own VPN? Is it going like this, right? Yes. Is customer B traffic, let's say customer C3 traffic, is it going separately like this logically? Right? Every customer's traffic, every customer's routes have they traveled logically, virtually separate, even though the physical path is what? Common. This is the physical path, right? This is physical. Is this common? Yes. So even though this underlay, even though this transport is common, still every customer's traffic, every customer's route is flowing separately, uniquely. No two customers routes getting mixed up. Yes. No two customers traffic getting mixed up. Yes. That means every customer is as good as what? Virtually connected. And when you have like this, we call this as what? VPN. It is like this now. Customer 1, R1 and R6. It is as good as what? I have made them as what? Like one VPN. And customer 2, R7 and R8. It is like what? Another VPN. Customer 3 maybe, let's say it is like another VPN. Right? Their virtual lift traffic. Their traffic is flowing as good as what? Directly between R9 and R10, directly between R7 and R8, directly between R1 and R6. No other customer will be able to see the routes of customer 1, R1 and R6. Like R1 can see routes of only R6, R6 can get routes of only R1. R1 can send traffic to only R6, R6 can send traffic to only R1. Every customer's traffic, every customer route ultimately will flow through the same shared cloud. And when customers share a common shared cloud, we call this as what? VPN, virtual private network. Remember we did IP-state VPN. We are GRE VPN. You are using what? One common network to send and receive your routes and traffic. The same way, when we do this, this is called as what? MPLS VPN. This is now known as what? MPLS VPN. When we do this, this is known as what? MPLS VPN. Every customer routes going separately, exchanging separately. Every customer's traffic going separately, not getting mixed up. Virtually, physically, everything is going through what? The same physical path. R3, R2, R4, R5. The path is same, but still no two customers traffic, no two customer routes ever get mixed up. And when we do this all, we are set to establish what? VPN for every customer. And when we do this, this is called as what? MPLS VPN. And MPLS VPN is also known as what? Layer 3 VPN. So we would have only layer 3 VPN in your CCA enterprise. There are no layer 2 VPNs, no L2TP, no PPTP, no Metro Ethernets. So all that thing is basically part of your CCI service providers. But still this is the base. First, you should, I mean, everybody should understand L3 VPN. If L3 VPN is clear, we have understood what is VRF, we have understood what is RD, then other things also will become easy later on. Now another challenge. I'll just tell the challenge, then we'll see about that challenge tomorrow. So now every customer, what is in the beginning, what is the requirement? What the engineer, what this MPLS people who created all this thing, what they thought? Okay, every customer would like to exchange their own routes. Every customer would like to exchange their own traffic. Yes. Then one fine day, somebody said, "What if, what if, what if one customer would like to access routes of another customer? One customer would like to, access server in of another customer." That means now what is this? This is something like this. Maybe I will draw using some different color. Let me use, I don't know, let me use this color now. It's like maybe I say, okay, what if I want router 1 would like to access routes of router 8? Like router 1 would like to access route of network M, like this. That means basically router 1 originally want to access router 6, router 8 originally is accessing router 7, but at the same time now I want R1 and R8 also to communicate. What is the meaning of this? If you see this diagram now, how many colors do you see on R1? How many colors do you see on R8? How many colors? Let's, using colors, try to understand. On R1, how many colors do you see? Two colors, right? That means it's like R1 would like to participate in more than one VPN, right? R8 also now would like to participate in more than one week. Originally, they have their own routes. Originally, they want to access their own servers. Now, they want to access what? Servers of some other customer. Is it a possibility in a real world? Yes. So, what if like this thing happens? So, the service provider engineers 20 years back, when they were thinking all this thing, somebody raised a hand and say, okay, you're talking about RD, you're talking about VRF, everything very good, good, done, looks good, practical. Every customer's traffic flowing separately, every customer's route separately. But what if two customers want, two different customers, two different sites, they want to communicate with each other? Requirement can come like that. And this is where now what will happen? This is where your RD fails. So RD basically is, RD job is what? It identifies membership of only one single VPN. RD is used to identify membership of one single VPN. But if one site would like to participate in more than one VPN, you can't have two RDs now. You can't have three RDs. You can't have 10 RDs. So problem. So with RD, as long as every customer want to access their own sites, want to access their own traffic, then RD would have been sufficient. But if customers want to access other customer sites, multiple customer sites, then RD is incapable. Then RD is incapable. RD cannot provide this solution, and that's the reason they said, okay, something we should also have, not only RD, we should also, along with RD, we should have something else also, because that could be a requirement for the customer. It's not like every customer would do that, but possibility. Out of 100 customers, maybe if 10 customers will tell me, no, you okay, we are using your network. This another organization, they are also using your network. So please provide us connectivity, because ultimately, service provider, you guys, you have every customer's route, so you can provide us connectivity like that. We don't want to set up. We don't want to take another VPN. We don't want to take another link. I don't want a link for R1 and R8 different. I don't want them to be in a different VRF. like that. No, they can't be in different VRF. So something else was also needed, and that something else was created, and that is called as what? Route target, RT. We'll see that tomorrow. Time's up. So today I have shown you how things will work for a single VPN. Every customer is work for a single VPN, like that. When you create VRF, if you create VRF, you don't even need any RD, as long as only VRF is concerned. You don't define even RD. But if you see now, if you have only VRF and there is no RD, then how the overlapping routes will be identified? How the routes will be identified? To you to uniquely identify the route, some unique ID has to be there. So that's the reason whenever you define VRF, you should always remember a VRF without RD is useless. Because if you receive the routes and store the routes in the VRF, tomorrow if you want to extend these routes, what there will be no sticker. If you create a VRF, when you create the VRF, the router is not going to tell you that hey, you are not defined the RD. So if RD is not there, this VRF I'm not going to create. No, VRF gets created without RD also. VRF gets created without RD also, and routes in the VRF will get they will remain in the VRF. But what is the use of those routes? If you receive the routes, you should exchange the routes. If there is no exchange, then what is the use of those routes? They're just simply lying with in the VRF. At least you want to forward the routes to another VRF, right? You want to forward to not another VRF. You want to forward to your another location of the same customer in a different city. That's the reason when you define the when we define the VRF, tomorrow we'll see what are the requirements of VRF. RD is not compulsory. RT is not compulsory. Please understand. To create the VRF, RD and RT is not compulsory. But then ultimately, today maybe you don't want, but tomorrow ultimately you will require those things. So when service providers define the VRF for every customers, they always think of okay, for this customer will have this RD. For one customer, they'll decide only one RD, one RD. We'll see that all tomorrow. Okay. So thank you guys. Thank you for being here. See you guys tomorrow. Today again, in fact, the attendance going higher. It has gone down. Only 23 guys remain. I think